Somewhere internally, I just had this strong feeling that came from somewhere deep inside of me that just said, well, life doesn't have to be this way, and there's infinite potential for it.
I didn't then, a lot of people these days don't spend any time on their minds.
Hi guys, great to be back for 2024. This is our first podcast filming for the year, and this one is a really exciting one. We've both had an experience with family and people that we knew over the Christmas break, and this one's about getting real, being authentic, and the trials and tribulations and the challenges that goes with that. It's a wonderful episode to watch. What's been happening with you out there?
Look, it's been a really interesting and unexpected time since I last saw you, Cameron. Actually had a family member that passed away quite suddenly in the past couple months. About from illness to passing away was about 6 weeks. So we were all taken by surprise. And obviously it's really interesting to me when you have certain things that happen, births, deaths, really major things in life, like everything just stops. And there's a lot that happens, from a personal perspective when you lose someone you really care about. But the part I really wanted to talk about with, on the podcast today is what I noticed after. So we had the funeral, and afterwards it was with people because it was family. Some of them had moved overseas, and I hadn't seen them for, close to 20 years in some cases.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see how in the midst of this, like when people are grieving, like everything is stripped away and you're left with reflection. We're left with, as I say, the BS just goes away, and you're like in that moment of time where, hey, you've just, someone in your life that was there isn't there anymore. And it's a time for reflection. But I also found, because our podcast is Get Real, I was really fascinated when afterwards I reflected on it and just saw how many people got real. And, some of these people, I had never heard that in 15 to 20 years that I knew them, or whatever the case was. I had never heard, people, we spend so much time defending our position or proving ourselves or guarding ourselves, or we don't want to look bad. But then in that moment, I just heard people just so reflective, like, I did this and this was the reason that everything collapsed. Or it's just like that level of honesty of people, like it's time to get complete. Do you know what I mean? If we're not complete yet. And I watched all of this happen.
Yeah.
And it really made me think about what we do. And, we're when we got together to talk about this podcast, it was, we could have called it anything. We could have talked about business success all the time. And, my work is about two things. It's about success, but very much so, I think you'll know, it's about being our true selves and being authentic. And for me, they go hand in hand. Like if we're going to be successful, we have to be authentically successful. I've worked with so many really successful people, but if they're not authentic, none of the success, as we've talked about, the material success or whatever the case might be, doesn't really do it for them. Even though adoration and fame and fortune doesn't do it for them if there's not an authenticity that goes along with it. And so I think when we did created our podcast and said Get Real, it was really interesting. Like when I was there, I just got, hey, this is what Get Real, looks like. And so, it's one of the things that really, if we bring it to today, I feel really inspired by to be doing this with you because obviously you're at the top of the game in an entire nation, in your real estate industry. But I know from working with you that your dedication to being your true self, right? And something that's really come to me, and it's something I'm really passionate, it's not the right word. Like I look everywhere around me and I see how many people are trying to create themselves as a persona, and maybe social media has made that get a bit more, but it's like we're trying to, but even before social media, like when I grew up, I didn't know this for a long time, but I tried to construct myself simply so my parents would approve of me. Right? And so, if I get good grades, they'll approve of me. Or if I act this way, they'll approve of me. And really, for like a lot of years more than I would like to admit, I spent my life trying to please them and have them love me, and how ridiculous, because if anybody's a parent, you love your child, whatever they do. But I'm looking at particularly uh, the how, if we're going to be successful today, that comes along with the persona. And it's something that you and I have spoken a bit about. And I would be really interested to, it's really got me thinking since this funeral about getting real. And today I was like, oh, it's getting real about getting real, right?
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things that really inspires me about you is your dedication to, because the lure of what you've got, the fortune, the fame, the people, the adoration. You've talked on the podcast, and I know in your industry everybody wants to be Cam Bailey, right? And I know another side of you, which is the real Cam Bailey, and your quest to go, well, hey, that's really cool, I've created that success, but also what's it cost you? And what I'd love to talk about, if you're happy to, is the battle between the persona it takes to be successful and the journey to be your authentic self, which I know you're dedicated to and have really done a lot of put a lot of efforts for in the last 2-3 years I've known you.
Yeah.
What do you reckon about it?
I mean, I think this is a great topic because I too had someone I know pass away over the Christmas break. So a good client of mine, she was only 54 years old, and I only seen her a week or two before we all sort of stopped for Christmas, and she passed away on a boat in the Barb Islands, and it's horrific. She's far too young, and I find you always say there's only good and good, and I find that the good that I can find in a death is that it brings perspective around life. Yeah. It makes you realise that there's so many more important things out there. And I remembered that when I heard about this, I thought, should I've got to spend more time with my parents or my kids or my partner or the people that you love? And I think when you're sitting there in the funeral, that's what you think about, because you see their memories and their life, and you start thinking, well, am I living the life that you really do? So it forces you to get real. And most people then think they're going to get real for a couple of days, and they ring their parents up and go and see their parents, but then it doesn't last. And that's the battle you're facing in your life, trying to get real. I don't think anyone's authentic all of the time. I'm certainly not. It's hard work to try and live your true life that you're trying to live, because you get pulled back into stories, and you get you have bad days, and you feel like you need a pump up of ego. So I feel like you're constantly battling it. And I can have months and years probably where I'm feeling wonderful, and I feel like I'm living as much of the my authentic self, and then you can go back a month. So when I started doing my work with you, one of my things was to try and work less, and it was like turning the Titanic. I said to myself, I'm going to start having Fridays off, and it probably took me a good year to really get into that routine of having every Friday off and not booking appointments, and my PA's not booking appointments and things like that. So, and it's still a problem, like I've still, even today, I've come back to work about 3 or 4 weeks ago. My first Friday off I had was yesterday. There's no reason I shouldn't have had all the other Fridays off when I started back work. I had in my mind that I've had a month off, I need to start working again, we're going into the busy season, and I got pulled back into my old stories, and I haven't done it, which is exactly not what I'm trying to do. So
it becomes a cycle, doesn't it? Like I know I've got into those too, and it's like I find that I just get caught up in a way of being. It's almost like you can snap into this way of being, and you come out of it on the other end going, I didn't do all those things that I said I was going to do. So
and that way of living, like if I look at my last 20 years in real estate, and probably my last 40 years of life, that's how you've been living your life most of that time. You don't just get to a certain day and say, I'm going to be my authentic self, and it happens. Yeah. So, I think that's what it's about. It's hard work, and you've got to constantly keep working on yourself in different ways. And I think you can work on one area, and then it might highlight another area as well. So that's an interesting thing to talk about as well.
Oh, yeah. Look, for me, because in my role, every day I'm helping people to get through mindset blocks and things. People kind of assume sometimes, oh, Sridhar's got it all together, and, he doesn't go through those ups and downs. And I've done my work for, the work that I do for a very long time, like personally towards myself. But the mind is going to give us, doubts was something that I experienced such a lot of. And this is what's important to me, because, and I want to say it because I think we sort of feel out there, like if I say, oh, I've got doubts along the way, oh, I can't tell people that because I don't look strong and I don't do this, but that I've done enough work with enough thousands of people to know everybody's got doubts, and it doesn't, that even the people that we look at and admire and go, oh, they've got it all together. Well, they don't. Like and this is important. And for me, I deal with stories, as you know, Cameron, like what's in the way and what are our thoughts about that are holding us back. And I get those regularly, right? But it's what we do with them. And to me, it's so, I'd be very interested to have a chat about, because I know you've been getting more conscious and more aware of what it takes. Like it's, again, like to be successful. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Like we have to create a persona for that. Like, I mean, you're can you relate to that in terms of what you do? Like it's like, okay, well, this has happened to me. Like I'm Sridhar, the coach person, or speaker or whatnot. And then for a long time, like I'm Sridhar, the person that's behind the scenes. There was very much a wide gap between those two things. And my dedication is I want to fuse them, because I don't want to be a persona at my job. I want me to be at my job. I want people say, they talk about their brands, and I'm like, well, I actually am my brand. What I say and do and be, it's me, and I don't want there to be a separation. But it certainly didn't start that way, and it's still, as you say, a challenge. So, what's some of the what are some of the challenges that you face between, being Cam Bailey that we know and the real estate, superstar really, and Cam Bailey the person? Is it seamless, or do you find that
it's certainly not seamless? Like I've been working on it for 3 years, and I still feel like I've got a lot of work to do. And as I said, it's easy to slip back into an old story, but you do have more of an awareness of when you're going into a story and trying to get out of it faster. But there's a big difference between Cameron Bailey real estate agent and Cameron Bailey authentic self. And with the Cameron Bailey real estate agent, I think a lot of it you're trying to live up to other people's expectations, other expectations of what a number one agent is, or what you should be doing, or how much you should be earning, or how many houses you should be selling. And the real authentic Cameron Bailey, he's probably more interested in laying on a beach in Bali and meditating. So it's trying to find the balance between them probably. And I don't know if anyone can be authentic all of the time. And I don't think anyone can be in their persona all the time either. So I think it's finding some middle ground. I mean, everyone wants to live more towards their authentic self, but can you do it? Can you be in your authentic self all the time? What do you think?
Well, I mean, this has been something that, I guess from experience, that's become my number one aim and outcome for life. Like more than any business success, anything, which I'm very, dedicated to that as well. When I say business success, it's really, I've got a mission that some really amazing people helped me from quite a dark space in life to having my, essentially dream life and loving it. But my number one thing is be authentic, because if I don't have that, nothing that I try to put on top of that ever works. Like it's only ever a temporary fix, right? The next bit of money, or the next recognition, or the next whatever it is, while it might be really nice for a second or two or a few moments, it's only just temporary, and then I need the next thing. But the answer for me, well, the dedication for me is, that's my aim. My aim is I want to be my authentic self 100% of the time. Does it happen? Absolutely not. Right. But the thing that I do is I've trained myself, and I think this is important and maybe a good topic for us, because I know this is something you're working towards as well, and would love to hear your journey. But that's forefront in my mind, is to recognize the moment that I'm not being my genuine self. I think we were just having a chat the other day, and I shared with you something a really one of my real profound teachers in life said. She's an amazing lady, and she said, human beings don't love, we want something. Or egos, no, I shouldn't say human beings, because we have the capability to, but egos don't love, they want something. And so I'm constantly monitoring myself, because it's what you're saying. The pull is there, like what we call the ego mind, and in my work I call it the ego mind. It's just that It's that mind that's full of, I've talked about this word quite a lot, motives, right? Like it's not just saying something to someone because it wants to say it, right? That's what I loved about the good in the funeral experience, even though it was a very tough experience, was hearing these people say something because it was there to be said, not because they were trying to look good, not because, it was there because they needed to say it.
Mm.
It's like, okay, this is your time. I'm really hearing you loud and clear, that people say it during that time, and then we go back in our life and become the same. But what I would hope is that people would take those times and not do that, because at the end of the day, that authenticity is the only thing that's actually real about this life. Those moments that's what's real. So I'm aiming to say, when am I not doing that? And I know it immediately. And I think I'd be interested to hear your reflections on this. But for me, it's been my number one practice for a long time. And I do want to say, because it's coming to mind, that when I'm authentic in myself, because I don't want to sort of, because I am in a business success role that I help people to do, or whatever success, like, it's not, my experience is when we are authentic, that success just comes to us and grows far more than it would if we're trying to get something and force it to happen. It just does. And so my aim is, look, I know when I'm not feeling genuine, when I'm not being genuine, because I feel it straight away. I know it doesn't feel good. I know I'm trying to manipulate someone into giving me something I want, or to get something that may or may not be right for them, or just saying something that is not real to me. Like if I get I'm upset or angry or frustrated, I can say something that to my wife, for example, that's not how I want to talk to my wife. And so, but I want to recognize that generally in the past, I lived like that.
Yeah,
like there was no difference between
that's
that.
what I was just going to say. What we're learning is how to recognize it and stop it and change it, hopefully. Because you're right. I mean, I spent 30 years, 40 years thinking that was life and thinking that's what I wanted, and then you realize that it's not. So there must be another way to live. And when you get a taste of it, it's wonderful, because we've both, I mean, I've had a taste of it. I was doing a lot more in work of what I wanted, and it didn't mean I earned any less money. I actually had bigger business. So everything that I was telling myself in my mind I needed to do was actually slowing me down. It was doing the exact opposite of what I really needed to do, because I needed to have more time off and to have better people around me and say no to people that I didn't have around me, so that it gave me more energy and more space for the good stuff. So it was really powerful.
It's a powerful attractive force, isn't it, to be the self? But how easy is it to not, to slip in? Like I think if we, I feel like maybe what's happened over the past couple of weeks, like really just kind of share some of my own experiences about, what kind of things come up for me, and hopefully you can do the same. Like and I think, because my desire, I hope you're up for this, Cameron, because my desire is just for people to do, we're doing this podcast called Get Real, but how, I know you said like it's not possible to be inauthentic all the time, but I think we have been brought up in a world that largely is inauthentic a lot of the times. If you think about all the stuff that's out there trying to get people to do something that isn't just honest or genuine or straightforward, I think we've, whether it's human ego nature or marketing or whatever the case is, it's like we've just become such a manipulative society trying to get people to do what we want them to do, and not just, and be that in our business lives or personal lives. How many or how few people are just actually, hey, this is who I am, put it on the line here. It's I find it, I hope I'm not being cynical, but I find it less and less and less, that people do. But being real is just, I was talking with my wife the other day, and we were saying, what's the best feeling state that there is? And she asked me the question, we talk about frequency. What's the highest frequency? That for me, that's like, where are we plugged into that is the best feeling place? And hands down, it was, because I talk about love. I think we had a
You
talk
asked
about
me
this
the
too.
other day, and I said it must be love.
Yeah, which was my answer too. And then my wife came back and really blew me away, and she said, "Well, what about authenticity?" And I said, you're spot on. And like when I'm authentic, I am. We can't be in an authentic space and not be in the true space of love. But again, like my teacher said, it's not that ego love. That's a different thing. And so I do feel that, and we are learning to be not authentic. We are learning to protect ourselves. We are learning to create personas. The better persona you can make on social media, the more money you'll make, the more of an influencer you can be. But I'm like, well, what are you actually influencing people to do? We'll leave that for now. But it's to look the part or be the part. And again, like when it just peels back, I guess it's because I do this every day for a living. People at the end of the day, they have sorrows going on, they have tough things going on in their life, sometimes in their relationships, sometimes in their mental state. We're starting to see it more of the suicides that are coming out of people that we thought had it all together and things like that. But for me, I because people say, "Oh, Sridhar, you seem to have it all together," and I say, well, "Look, I do my work. I do my work every day, and I'm going to be unapologetic about that, because if I don't, I was a basket case in my life when I didn't. Right, things got on top of me, and I felt like I couldn't really make it through. I mean, if I remember where all of this started for me, it was because I couldn't cope with life and ended up doing drugs and getting hopelessly addicted to that as a coping mechanism to get through the pain that I had. And that I'm really grateful for that, because it woke me up to, if I don't do something about this mindset that I've got, my life is going to be really, really in a bad way. But how that shows up now is, doubts can still creep in. I mean, it's like, something doesn't happen right, and I'll just all of a sudden find myself on this track of, this isn't going to work out. It's one of the big stories, excuse me, for this mind. This isn't going to work out. And I'll just get on top of that, because if I don't, if I let that go for any length of time, all of a sudden I'm sucked into the doldrums and I'm not functioning well. So, that's one. Or, fears of things not going well. That's just one of the big ones. But that's something that I think it's important to know, no matter how successful people get, tell me if I'm on the right track or not. That's still there. Like, it doesn't go away. So
I think the more successful you are, the harder it is to get it right, because often a lot of success comes from a driver inside us telling us we're not good enough or something like that. So that pushes us hard, and that's the good thing that comes out of it. But it also means it's really easy to slip back into those stories.
Yeah.
So if one of your stories is I'm not good enough, then it's really easy to think you do something, and if it doesn't work, it's you that's not good enough. And then you go back into the whole cycle again.
Trying to prove.
And what was never really wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, I think because you've shared that in a previous conversation, would you be happy to share, like, what is that like? Because you've obviously, with that story, I think this is what's really important, because so many people that are, the super successful, that's how they got that way.
Yeah.
It's because, and so, but what is it? It's not all a bed of roses, is it? When you get all that success from that place.
I mean, that's one of my stories, is that you're not good enough. I remember, like thinking when I was a young boy, and I've talked about this before, and I was thinking, I jumped in the first car when I was young with my brother, and it was someone else's car, and we were pushing the electric windows up and down, and we got really badly told off because we were playing with them, and it made me feel inside like we're not good enough to have a car like this. So that was one of the stories that added towards my drive to make me prove to the world that I'm good enough. So, that's probably something for me to go back into. I'm not good enough, or I'm...
Well, my question would be like, if you look at it on the one hand, you've created absolutely enormous success.
Yeah.
Like in business-wise, number one wise, I don't know how to say it.
If you call that successful, that's...
Well, it's certainly a form of it.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is.
I mean, in your industry, everybody's trying to really be, everybody's trying to be where you are.
Yeah.
And you're the one person that's there. and in our country of New Zealand anyway. So, but what is it all like? Is it all? Does it do it completely for you, or is there another
No.
side that when you get that, like what is there? If it's coming from that space, which it would have to be for everybody at the start. Is there one side to it? Does it actually work?
Well, no, it didn't work, because I felt that if I was successful and I was wealthy and I was, number one, for me, it probably wasn't about being number one. I think it was more about having the money and the accolades and everything that went with it. And then I think there is some of the number one feeling in there as well. We've talked about this as well. But I mean, I got to a point where I had it all, was number one, had all the money, and I was really unhappy. And it cost me almost everything. It cost me time with my kids, cost me family, cost me time with my parents. It was horrific. And if I looked back, someone said to me the other day, if you look back if you had to rate yourself, if someone else was running your life, how would you rate yourself? Was it you that said that to me? I don't know if it was. No, it was somebody else that said that to me. And they said, if someone else was running your life out of 10, how would you rate them? And
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing to do, because, I got to a point years ago and I thought I was a 10 out of 10, because that's what I thought I'd make me happy. But internally I was a 2 out of 10.
Wow.
So, and then I realized that, having more of this and doing more of this isn't going to make me happy anyway.
So what's the discord like to live with? I mean, that if you got 10 on one side and 2 on the other, what?
Well, it's terrible. You have, big swings, like big swings from highs and lows. So, you can go from jumping up on stage and being number one and everyone thinks you're a hero and you're Superman. And then, the very next day you wake up in your bed and you think, well, this is, totally flat. So big highs, big lows, internal disappointment. You're probably thinking, hey, where do I go from here? But that's probably what I got. I think a lot of people don't get there as far as I got. So they probably think that they're just not getting far enough. So they're thinking they've never reached it. So they almost don't feel the disappointment. But I felt the disappointment because I had everything. So a lot of people are just driving to get there, whereas I got there and I found that it was empty.
Yeah, I hope people really listen to what you're saying. Like this is, I've just got so much respect for what you're doing right now, because if people can get it, I mean, my experience of people being in the coaching world for 30 years now is they're starting out thinking that if they can get what you got or close to, that's going to do it for them. And look, I think pursuing the things that you really want to do, it's not all bad either, is it? Like, I mean, it's not the success, is it? It's the discord.
Yeah, there's still, and the answer to that is quitting real estate wouldn't have made me happy, because there's so much about real estate that I love, and the people and meeting the people, and like the lady that passed away, I've had a wonderful relationship with her and her children in the last, 10 or 15 years. So there's so much of it that's not money based, but meeting people and learning from people. And probably a lot of the things I've got from real estate is relationships with people and learning from them. I love sitting down with people and actually learning, what they've done in their life and how they've done it, and if they've created wealth, how they've done that. And some people talk about relationships with me, and we've done this and we've done that. It's just wonderful. Real estate's a wonderful opportunity to be able to sit around people and talk to them. Most people I find in life are quite isolated. They don't have wide groups of friends that they in different sort of forums. So most people group together and all their friends are similar wealth, similar interests, similar children's things going on. But real estate's one of those worlds where you're constantly meeting different people that are wealthier than you, that are going through separations, that have got all these things going on in life. And that's what I love about real estate. And deep down inside me, probably that's why I've been so good in real estate, because people can pick up on that. When I'm my authentic self at an appraisal and I'm actually selling their house, they can pick up on that. They know I'm not there just to earn a fee. No matter how many listings I've got, I'm actually in touch with them and I actually care about them. And I can sit down sometimes and do an appraisal and I'm in and out within 30 minutes. And then other times I can be there 2 hours because I really love the people and they open up to me. But it's still tough for me. It's still tough trying to get out of the cycle of being number one. And I'm trying to do something at the moment personally, and you and I have been talking about it for 6 months or a year, and I just can't quite get to the point where I can push myself to do it, because I keep getting pulled back into the circle, and it's comfortable. You get comfortable where you are, and I don't know, it's probably the hardest thing I think you're ever going to do in life, is trying to be authentic and trying to get out of your old stories. But that it starts with feeling it first, that you're in a story, and recognizing it, and then moving to, as soon as you recognize it, you sort of can fix it, can't you? Because you realize it's not true.
It's a journey. I'm just so inspired to be on with you, as watching you. I think the great thing about it is it's very easy to also, as you said, like, get to the end of it, do the whole thing until you don't want to do it anymore, and then you go away and then start working on yourself. But I think what's kind of super awesome about this, and about even the fact that we got together and said, hey, let's do this podcast and share what we know with people, is you're actually on that journey to your genuine self as you're in it. And that's what I'm so fascinated by. Look, I have a version of this too, and I'll share it. That and I love what you're saying, Cameron, is that it's a step-by-step process, and I think it's important to know, hey, we don't just wake up and become genuine overnight, but to kind of...
Wish it was that easy.
Well, in a sense, I guess, but it's, sometimes I really do, because sometimes it feels like a tough journey, like, why can't I just get there? And because you could really start getting tired of the ego mind after a while. You're like, just leave me alone and let me get on, be happy. Because you start really, the more you do, you work on being genuine, the more it becomes uncomfortable when we're not. And we just know, I'm trying to manipulate again, and I'm worried, I'm in fear again. I'm not just in the moment. I'm living in the past or the future, and it becomes increasingly uncomfortable. And so, it would be nice, but it's not the way it works for most of us anyway. I
mean, what do they say? It's about the journey, not the destination. So I think it's wonderful learning these things and these skills and techniques, and that's probably half the fun, isn't it? Really, as well.
I think so. Like you get the wins along the way. Like I'll share mine, because when I used to tell my clients this, like a little bit of a somewhat, I guess, possibly embarrassing moment, but I used to go out and, my teachings were go out there and be the best of everything in this. And so I used to come out, even in my coaching, and I'd say to people, I'm going to be one of the top, coaching people in the world. And I used to put all the names that I was going to be with, that's who you're going to hear me beside my name in lights. And I'm going to work with the leaders of the world and all the, this type of thing. And that was my goal. And then as I, and thank goodness, the thing I'm the most grateful for in my life, and I have a lot to be grateful for, is being introduced to the pathway to the authentic self, and waking up to the fact that that's not what I was doing. More than anything else, I've got a lot of blessings in my life. Wonderful, absolutely beautiful marriage, a wonderful woman, and the work I get to do, the success we've been able to achieve, but or experience. But the main thing above all of that, seriously, is that pathway to authentic self. And as I started to, question my motives, why was I wanting to do that? And you're hitting upon something for me, because I think you're hitting on something really important. Because as that started to get carved away, and that's what happened as I began to look at the truth of my motives and the work that we do around the authentic, getting authentic, I started to notice that it wasn't like I tried to make it go away. I just found that I didn't care about that stuff anymore. I didn't care. I just wanted to, I found that what I really want to do is just work with people that want to, they want more in their life, and they don't want to be limited. And I don't care who they are. They don't have, nobody knows who they are, I don't mind. And the thing that I think you're getting to is, I just started to do what I loved. I thought what I love is to see somebody break through that limitation and have that smile on their face, and that they connected with something. If it's an accomplishment, it's something they really wanted. Or if it's, saying something to a loved one, they got to do it and stopped fluffing around and, guarding themselves, and they got to just say, hey, I love you and I'm sorry for this, or whatever the case might be. That's what I loved. And what I find interesting, and you're saying it, all that stuff that I thought I wanted started to come, but I didn't need it. And it was like, it didn't, and I think it's important because if I did need it, I had another teacher of mine say, if you need it, you're not ready for it. And that really sunk in. Like if I needed that stuff, I wouldn't have been ready for getting it because why did I need it? Right? But I think you're saying something really important is if you find the parts of what you do that you just love and focus on that, then all those things come. But it's not, it's I don't know what how to say what I'm trying to say, but it's like, it's all the whys that we're doing. Why? Because I want people to like me. I want people to notice me. I want to be, if I'm really getting into it, I want to be better than other people or seen as better than other people. I want to be all this type of stuff, but it's just it's an empty road to nowhere. But I was in it. It starts from very young, from my experience. Like my brother did better at me than school, way better. My parents really loved that, so I'm like, well, I want that. I want that recognition, and that's how it all starts. And next thing you know, 30 years later, 40 years later, we're, hope I can say this on a podcast, pimping ourselves out for recognition or whatever the case might be. And why though? At the end of the day, what is that? What's that going to bring? But I do think it's important to pursue what we love, and I do think it's important to make a difference to people. I know you made a big difference to us, even though my role is the coach person. The roles were certainly reversed when we were selling our home, and very suddenly, after close to 20 years, realizing, hey, our journey's taken us somewhere else. Not living here anymore, and in Christchurch where we are now. But your presence with us made a big difference, and so I think when you and just you had some real pearls of wisdom for us to consider, because no matter what work you do, you're sometimes in situations where it's all on the line. I mean, we had just built a home, it was our forever home, and it was like, actually it's not. You're moving after 2 years, which he knew was the case. But to have you have been there with us, that I think that's the magic, right? And I think when I am with someone and I can just really be present with them and be with them in the state of mind that they're in, that's all there is to it. And I think the rest of it takes care of itself. So I think these are really important conversations to be having, because why? I mean, if we stop and really look at the world, and I guess I'm really, this is in my everyday world, because I work with this every day of when I meet someone new, that's where they are, right? They're in that place of, when we start peeling back the layers, why are you doing what you're doing? Oh, I want to be recognized, or I want, and even if they don't know it, this is the sort of strange thing, that even if they don't know it, because I didn't know it for a long time, I didn't know that that's what I was doing. It's still there. And as we peel back the layers, all of a sudden we have this wake up moment that I've not actually been following the genuine reasons for living my life. I've been trying to prove something, or I'm trying to get something of some sort. So I think for me, I might just be more. It might be more in my world because that's what I do. But it does appear to me that just about everyone, if not everyone, is living in some version of that, and it's quite important to see it.
And I feel like a lot of people realise too late. Like you live your whole life and you get to the twilight years, and then you can't change all that stuff, can you? Like you can't change it. You can't go back and say, I wish I'd worked less, or I wish I'd done a different job, or things like that.
This is what enthuses me the most about what we're doing here, because it's one thing to talk about being genuine and that, but not have traveled a path of being successful in something that you want to do, but there's another journey, which is being really successful at what you want to do, but then not getting genuine, which is, I think, people do both of those a lot. But it's if they're not both together, would you agree with me, Cameron? If they're not both together, it's empty either way.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's terrible. I think when we talk a lot about this 5 regrets of the dying, and there was a year-long program I do, and when I thought about how was I going to open it, you might remember we opened it with that 5 regrets of the dying, because it's like, I mean, it's one of the things I'm so thankful for, is to get that teaching when I did, to come across that teaching when I did, because I can't imagine. I mean, this is my mission. I think it's from talking with you. It's something you're really dedicated to doing, and really, Cameron, I'd like us all to really acknowledge you, because you're really putting yourself out. You could have gone away on the horse. I'm sure people have a certain persona of you and the success you've achieved. You could have easily just quietly gone away, but for me, let me just say it here, to utilize, this to me is like way more number one even than your success, is what you're doing right here and now. Because if people can learn from that and not live that life, like what I'm saying is, I can't imagine, and I don't want to imagine what it would like for it to be too late. Like, I don't know, again, it's if I've been in a funeral in the last, just over a week. So I'm really present to it, but I mean, it's too late. Like, it's too late then. And I know for me, one of my missions is, let's not make it too late, right? Let's instead.
Because what does too late look like?
It looks like waking. It looks like you're on your dying days, and you're looking back at your life, and you're saying, I didn't do it. I didn't say to that person what I wanted to say. I didn't get what was really important to me. And but this is a really important thing. Because people go, okay, look, that's only a short period of time. But this is what I now know, is that if we're living that life in any way, if we're not saying to our loved ones what we want to say, if we're not pursuing the life that we really truly want to pursue for the reasons that we truly want to pursue it, if we're not really being true to ourselves, it's not just the end when we feel it, it's our whole lives that we're not actually alive in the first place. Because we know it's that quiet desperation. I mean, I often say, if you really want to understand the state of the world, look at how, if you take all the addictions in the world and you add them, because there's a lot of different types of addictions, and we have the ones that we know about. There's all sorts of things that people get addicted to. It's all temporary fixes. And if you look at addictions, addiction is a function of unfulfillment. So to the degree that we don't feel fulfilled, we fill ourselves up with temporary gratification to escape that pain. And sometimes that pain can be quiet pain. And it's, if you look at just how much, I don't want to use it in monetary terms, but how much money is being spent on addictive things, you'll see the degree of lack of fulfillment in this world. And I think that's what's so important.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
And it's, we're not taught this. This is what's, maybe we're just starting to wake up to it, but we're not taught in school, hey, be, or maybe now more so, but like really be true to yourself. But I don't personally think our world is still geared towards helping young people to say, hey, who are you really? Don't have peer pressure determine who you are.
Yeah.
You don't have to live up to anything, even parentally. You got to, don't be crazy or anything, but like find yourself and be who you truly, be true to yourself. It's missing from the
It is
teachings.
changing because there's more podcasts and availability to go online and look at stuff and do work on yourself. And that's why the social media and the internet's wonderful, because it does make the world small, and you can be watching someone over in America or Switzerland or whatever, and they can come up with something. But to me, too late looks like your parents dying and you're wishing that you'd gone and seen them every week. Like I've got a big thing. I don't see my parents a lot. I love them to death, and they're special for me, and I'm always there when we need me. I had a bit of a situation with my dad over the Christmas break, and he needed some help, and he's gone through a breakup and things like that. So he was down, and it pulled us together again. But I keep thinking I need to go and see my mum, and I need to spend more time with her, and like a lot of the time I don't do it, because I'm too busy, or I'm whatever.
That's the one day syndrome.
Yeah,
one day I'll get there. One day I'll get there.
Yeah. So too late is when she dies.
Yeah. Like that.
And then I'll be looking back and thinking, geez, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
So that's what too late looks like for me, or it looks like not having the hard conversation with a partner or your business partners, or to do what you want to do. So,
but what we're saying earlier is that's not the easiest thing, is it? So when you get into, because you and I have talked a bit about the worlds that you're in, right? Like you and I, like now, can really sit down and have some super genuine conversations. But then when you, I don't think there's probably a lot of people that can understand the world you step into when you're managing the level of, kind of just the sheer number of houses that you're, working with selling. It's like an entire world, isn't it? That you it's like I've said to you in the past, like it feels like when I've seen you transition into that, it's almost like that you kind of go into this other space, right? And it's hard, like it's very difficult to then